Hi class, today I want to talk to you a little bit about deviance. What is deviance? Well, in a couple chapters ago you learned about norms, the expected behavior that a society has for individuals within that society. Well, deviance is when you break the norms. It's a behavior, trait, or belief that departs from a norm and generates a negative reaction in a particular group, generally. So deviance is different from one culture to the next. If you saw somebody in American culture with a huge disc in their lip, you would probably stare. Whereas in another culture, that is a norm. And if you don't have a disc in your lip, people will stare. Similarly, there's a picture here of a man with many tattoos on his arms. And in fact, tattoos are somewhat normative nowadays, except facial tattoos are not normative, and so while we might be having lots of tattoos and thinking people with tattoos are cool, if you see somebody with tattoos on their face, we generally think that was an unwise decision. It's against the norms of our society. It's very deviant. Theories of deviance. In the functionalist theory, deviance serves as a function in our society because as people respond to deviating from the norm, our norms are reinforced collectively, meaning that you know how people respond to deviance generally is they respond adversely with informal negative sanctions. And then you change your behavior or you don't, and that will, in that interaction itself, that reinforms society's norms and creates social cohesion, telling people what is allowed and what is not allowed. Now, deviance and what is considered norms, a norm, changes over time. And so what might have been deviant 20 years ago is no longer necessarily deviant. For example, homosexuality. I know that when I was growing up, to be a homosexual was something that was extremely deviant and not really talked about, and very much so frowned upon, much more difficult than it is today. And in that 20 years, I've watched where homosexuality is not the norm in the sense that, you know, it's only ever going to be 10% or below of the society that is actually homosexual. So it's never going to be part of the norm, but it is normative in the sense that homosexuals have always existed. Conflict theory looks at deviance and sees it as a result of cultural and social conflict. So in order for the powerful to maintain their power, they marginalize and criminalize the people who threaten their power. Inequality is reproduced in the way deviance is defined. So through conflict theory, we're going to be looking at more along the lines of deviance as crime. So remember, deviance and crime are not the same. Have you ever driven over 65 on the freeway? I'm assuming so. Technically that's illegal since the speed limit is 65, but it's not deviant because everybody does it. So it's a norm. So you see, not all deviance is a crime. Generally crime is a deviant act though, generally, but not necessarily. So I hope you enjoyed this chapter. Talk to you later. Bye!